So something that is never addressed in all the sovereign citizen stuff, and especially all the videos that relate to judge sovereign citizen fails, as if sovereign citizens are losing in court all the time because they allegedly don't know what they're doing. Let me preface that by saying I am not a sovereign citizen, but I used to associate with a lot of them, study with a lot of them. I'm just an ordinary everyday guy who received a traffic ticket or two in my time and discovered the hard way that due process doesn't exist in courts. So I started to fight back, and what I'm going to explain to you is exactly why due process doesn't work. And this is the one point that all of the pro-cop people, pro-judge people cannot say anything against. They are major fail here. They will lose this argument every single time because it's an easily demonstrable fact. The reason why sovereign citizens never actually lose in court is because of what's called judicial immunity. I'm kind of shocked that I've never seen any other videos address this ever. What this means is that when you go into a court, a judge can render absolutely any decision he chooses. Absolutely any. With zero consequence, zero liability, zero responsibility. He does not have to worry about what his decisions are. They are entirely discretionary. There's even great case law on this. I've been in courtrooms, just to give you, I know this is anecdotal, you haven't experienced this. Everyone has to get out there and experience this firsthand for them to really see what this is about. I've been in courtrooms as witnesses for other folks where I have watched the judge say point blank to the person in the courtroom who is trying to exercise due process rights, I don't like you, I hate you. You would think that would cause an immediate recusal from the case on the part of the judge, since of course he's biased against this person who's trying to exercise their due process rights, but it does not. They simply say, no, I'm not going to recuse myself. I'm going to continue to hear the case. And I've even heard them say, and I'm going to find you guilty. It's hilarious. It really is. Judges have judicial immunity, folks. You have no due process rights because they can render any decision they want. They're not beating the sovereign citizens in court. By the way, they're not even supposed to be in a position of beating them ever. They're supposed to be an impartial third party, but we all know that isn't the case when it comes to the sovereign types or anyone who attempts to assert due process rights. It does not happen. They instead assert themselves as their own self-appointed gods in their courtroom and say, no, I'm going to decide whatever I please. You are guilty. Now, does the person possibly have remedy at the appeal level? Yeah, they perhaps do. You never hear about those wins, but again, at the appeal level, you're taking it again in front of a judge. Does that judge have discretion? Of course they do. Folks, the country is such a joke right now. It's off the charts, and the ignorance on the part of cops especially, who don't understand this point, is so bad that it needs to be spoken about and spread around as much as possible. So look into the Commission of Judicial Conduct. This is an organization that polices judge, very much like how polices have their own internal investigations that are policed by whom? Other police officers. Of course, is there a bias there? Well, no, of course not. There can't be a bias there if police are policing other police officers, could there? So the Commission on Judicial Conduct, you have to look up the stats. You have to look at how do they discipline the judges who do something wrong. Do you ever, first of all, it is mostly made up of other judges, once again, so judges are judging other judges. Could there be a conflict of interest or a bias? No, of course not. So look up the stats and see what percentage of disciplinary action is ever taken against other judges. It is minuscule. I believe it falls under 1%. Do you ever hear about judges being prosecuted, folks? Of course not, unless they're having sex with children, unless there's a public outcry against the judge for grossly inappropriate behavior of some kind. Judges are never held responsible for their actions, neither criminally nor civilly, ever. Why? Because they have judicial immunity. If they have judicial immunity, do they actually really need to understand anything about the law ever? Think about it, folks. Everyone thinks, well, the judges know what they're doing. They're making the right decision. That's why sovereigns lose all the time, because they don't know anything about the law, the sovereigns. If the judge has immunity and full discretion and is never ever held liable in any way whatsoever for his decisions, then what difference does it make how little he knows about the law? Come on, folks. Think. Judges can have massive levels of ignorance about the law and still render any decision they choose and never be held responsible for it. I'm going to include a fun article here on some of the New York courts. The level of ignorance on the judicial bench is enormous, enormous. And yet there's a select number of cops and judges out there posting videos claiming sovereign citizens are getting, quote, owned in court, or the sovereign citizen fail. How can they possibly be failing if the judge can never ever render an inaccurate decision because he can never be held liable for his ignorance? For his ignorance. Wash, rinse, repeat. If you look up the stats in the Commission of Judicial Conduct to see what actually does happen to those who are, quote, disciplined, it's just a light, soft slap on the wrist. They offer them various options like, hey, you've been bad, don't do that anymore. And they say, okay. And life goes on, and that's about the extent of it. So I'm getting a real kick out of watching like Mike the Cop's videos. His level of constitutional ignorance is going to be a lot of fun for me to do videos on, and I'm going to do another one very soon relating directly to him, how he claims to be a supporter of the Constitution and yet violates it in a way that cannot be denied. Just like you cannot deny that judges are judging themselves and that they have full immunity, therefore sovereign citizens are not losing in court. Now, by the way, when the sovereign citizens or the regular everyday folks who are attempting to exercise their due process rights are denied that in court and they take it to an appeal, how much does this cost the taxpayer? How much are these judges benefiting from by taking all these people through the system? Hey, it's not the people's fault. This system was invented by the system itself, by the legislators, etc., etc. So it's certainly not the fault of the people who are trying to exercise their due process rights. It's the fault of the cops and judges who have immunities within their office and are not held responsible or liable, neither criminally nor civilly, for anything they do. Folks, it's so simple. And it's common sense and it's undeniable. Have fun. Thanks for watching.